What would you do if you survived a fire that killed your parents but left you with scars that made strangers stare? 17-year-old Sophie hid her face and played guitar on the streets, convinced she was too ugly to be seen. Then Taylor Swift proved that scars tell stories of survival, not shame. Sophie Martinez was 14 years old and completely normal. She worried about algebra tests and whether Jake Thompson would ask her to homecoming. She fought with her little brother about who got the TV remote. She complained when her mum made her do dishes. She was planning to try out for the school musical in the spring. She was just a regular kid, living a regular life in a small house in Franklin, Tennessee, just outside Nashville. The fire started at 2:37 a.m. on a Tuesday in November 2021. An electrical problem in the basement. The smoke detectors were old. Sophie's dad kept saying he'd replace the batteries but never got around to it. By the time anyone woke up, the first floor was engulfed. Sophie's bedroom was on the second floor. She woke up to her mother screaming. Smoke was pouring under her door. She could hear her little brother crying in the next room. She opened her door, which she'd later learn was the worst thing she could have done, and flames shot up the stairwell. Sophie doesn't remember much of what happened next. Her brain has blocked most of it out, but the firefighters' report filled in the gaps. She'd tried to get to her brother's room. She'd made it halfway down the hall before a ceiling beam fell, pinning her arm. That's when her face and hands got burned, trapped under debris while flames surrounded her. A firefighter found her unconscious and carried her out. Her parents and 10-year-old brother didn't make it out. Sophie woke up in the burn unit 3 days later. She was 14 years old. Both her parents were dead. Her brother was dead. And when she finally looked in a mirror 2 weeks later, she didn't recognize the face staring back. The scars covered the right side of her face, from her temple down to her jaw. Her right ear was partially gone. Her neck was scarred. Both her hands were covered in thick, discolored scar tissue. The doctors said she was lucky. Third-degree burns could have been so much worse. They'd saved her arm, saved most of her mobility. She'd heal. She'd function normally. But when Sophie looked in the mirror, all she saw was a monster. The next 3 years were a blur of surgeries, skin grafts, physical therapy, and foster care. Her extended family couldn't take her. Her grandparents were too old. Her aunt had 5 kids already. So Sophie went into the system, a series of foster homes where the other kids stared, or worse, pretended not to stare. Where going to school meant walking hallways, while people whispered and pointed. Where every mirror was a reminder that she'd survived, but her family hadn't. By the time Sophie was 17, she'd given up on normal life. She'd dropped out of school, moved into a group home, and spent most of her time trying to be invisible. She wore hoodies with the hood up, baseball caps pulled low, a scarf wrapped around the lower half of her face, even in Tennessee heat. She kept her scarred hands in her pockets. She looked at the ground when she walked. If people couldn't see her face, they couldn't stare. But Sophie still had her guitar. It had survived the fire. Her dad's old acoustic that had been in the garage. It was one of 3 things that survived: the guitar, a photo album that had been in the basement, and Sophie herself. She'd taught herself to play before the fire. After the fire, guitar became the only thing that made her feel human. Her scarred hands made some chords difficult, but she adapted. And when she sang, she could close her eyes and forget, just for 3 minutes, that she looked the way she looked. At 17, living in a group home with no money and no future, Sophie started playing on the streets of Nashville. Not because she wanted to be seen, she definitely didn't, But because she needed money and couldn't work a regular job where people would have to look at her face all day, she'd set up on a quiet corner, open her guitar case for tips, and play with her head down. She wore her usual uniform, hoodie, baseball cap, scarf covering half her face despite the heat. She never made eye contact, never talked to people who stopped to listen, just played and sang and tried to be as invisible as possible, while somehow being visible enough to get tips. Most days she made $20 or $30. Enough for food, enough to save a little, not enough to matter, but enough to survive. She mostly sang Taylor Swift covers. Anti-Hero was her favorite, because when she sang, "It's me, hi, I'm the problem, it's me," she meant every word. She was the problem. She was the one who survived when her family didn't. She was the one who looked like a monster. She was the reason people stared, and children asked their parents uncomfortable questions. It was a Wednesday afternoon in September 2024 when everything changed. Sophie was on her usual corner near Broadway, playing Anti-Hero for maybe the 100th time. She had her head down, hood up, scarf wrapped tight. Her guitar case had maybe $4 in it. People were walking past, like they always did. Then someone sat down next to her, not close, not threatening, just close enough to be clearly choosing to sit there, on the sidewalk, in jeans and a t-shirt, like a normal person. Sophie kept playing, kept her head down, hoped whoever it was would leave. But they didn't. They just sat there, listening. When Sophie finished the song, the person spoke. "That was beautiful," a woman's voice said. "Can I ask you something?" Sophie shrugged without looking up. "Why do you keep your face covered?" the woman asked. Sophie's stomach dropped. This was the question she dreaded. The question that meant someone was about to ask to see, about to be curious, about to make her explain. "Because people stare," Sophie said quietly, still not looking up. "Can I see?" the woman asked. Not demanding, just asking. "No," Sophie said. "Okay," the woman said simply. "Can I sit here, anyway?" Sophie didn't know what to say to that. Usually when she said no, people left. But this person just sat there, like Sophie's face wasn't even the point. "I'm Taylor," the woman said. Sophie's hands froze on her guitar strings. She knew that voice. She'd been singing that voice's songs for 3 years. "You're not," Sophie said. "I am," Taylor said gently. "And I heard you singing my song. You changed the lyrics in the second verse, made them sadder. Why?" Sophie's throat tightened. "Because they fit better, for me." "Can you sing it again?" Taylor asked. "I want to hear what you did with it." Sophie didn't know what to do. Taylor Swift was sitting next to her on a Nashville sidewalk, asking her to sing. But she was also the person Sophie most didn't want to see her face. Because Taylor was beautiful, and Sophie was not. "I can't," Sophie whispered. "Because of your face?" Taylor asked. Sophie nodded. "Do you want to know something?" Taylor said. "I don't care what your face looks like. I care about your voice. I care about how you made my song sound like it was written for someone who's actually struggling, not just performing struggle. I care about why you're sitting on this corner instead of on a stage somewhere. Can you look at me?" "No," Sophie said. "Okay," Taylor said. "Then don't. Just tell me, what happened to you?" And somehow, maybe because she couldn't see Taylor's face, maybe because she was so tired of hiding, maybe because Taylor was being weirdly persistent without being pushy, Sophie told her about the fire, about her family, about waking up with scars, about 3 years of surgeries and foster homes and people staring, about dropping out of school, about learning to be invisible, about singing on street corners because it was the only thing she could do without people having to look at her. When she finished, there was silence. Then Taylor said something Sophie would never forget. "Can I tell you what I see when I look at you?" "I'm not letting you see, not your face," Taylor interrupted. What I see when I look at you, the you that's sitting here telling me this story, is someone who ran into a burning building to save her little brother, someone who survived third-degree burns, someone who lived through losing everyone she loved, someone who taught herself guitar with scarred hands because she needed something to hold on to, someone who's been singing on streets for months because she refuses to give up even when everything tells her she should. That's what I see, not scars. A survivor. Sophie started crying, ugly crying, the kind that made her scarf wet. "I look like a monster," Sophie said through tears. "No," Taylor said firmly. "You look like someone who survived a fire. Those are two completely different things. Monsters hurt people. You saved people, or tried to. That makes you a hero, not a monster." "People stare," Sophie insisted. "People stare at me too," Taylor said. "Different reasons, but same feeling, like you're not human, you're just something to look at. It's awful. But here's what I learned. The people who matter don't stare. They see. There's a difference." "I don't want anyone to see," Sophie said. "I know," Taylor said. "But what if I could show you that your scars don't make you less worthy of being seen? What if I could prove to you that there are thousands of people who'd look at you and see a survivor, not a tragedy?" "How would you do that?" Sophie asked. "Come to my show tonight," Taylor said. "I'm playing Bridgestone Arena. Come on stage with me, sing Anti-Hero. But we're changing the lyrics. Not I'm the problem, it's me. We're singing I'm the survivor. It's me, because that's what you are." Sophie finally looked up. Taylor Swift was sitting cross-legged on a Nashville sidewalk, looking at her with no pity, no shock, no disgust, just looking at her like she was a person. "I can't," Sophie whispered. "They'll all see." "They will," Taylor agreed. 20,000 people will see. And you know what they'll see. Someone brave enough to stand on a stage when she's spent 3 years hiding. Someone strong enough to sing when she's convinced she's not worth hearing. Someone who survived. That's what they'll see, not scars, survival. Sophie spent the next 6 hours trying to talk herself out of it. But at 7 p.m., she was in a car heading to Bridgestone Arena. At 7:30, she was backstage with Taylor, still wearing her hoodie and scarf. At 8:15, Taylor was on stage, and Sophie was in the wings, shaking so hard she could barely hold her guitar. Then Taylor said into the microphone, "I met someone today who taught me what my song really means. Her name is Sophie, and she's going to help me sing Anti-Hero. But we're singing the truth version." Sophie walked onto the stage. 20,000 people were staring. Every instinct told her to run, but Taylor was standing there waiting, looking at her like she belonged. Sophie took off her scarf, then her hoodie, then her baseball cap. 20,000 people saw her scars, and you know what happened? They cheered. Not pity applause, not polite applause, genuine, thunderous cheering. Sophie started crying before she even started singing. But she sang. With Taylor beside her, she sang Anti-Hero. But when they got to the chorus, they sang Sophie's version. "It's me. Hi, I'm the survivor. It's me. Everyone agrees. Everyone agrees." The whole arena sang it back. 20,000 voices singing I'm the survivor to a 17-year-old burn survivor who'd spent 3 years thinking she was a monster. After the show, Taylor sat with Sophie for 2 hours. She talked about facial difference acceptance, about beauty standards being bullshit, about how scars tell stories and stories matter, about how Sophie's face wasn't ugly, it was just different, and different didn't mean less. Then Taylor did what Taylor does. She connected Sophie with a burn survivor support organization. She paid for Sophie to finish high school through an online program. She helped Sophie find a therapist who specialized in trauma and body image. She funded music lessons so Sophie could actually learn to play properly, instead of just teaching herself. But more than any of that, she gave Sophie permission to exist, to be seen, to take up space. Today Sophie is 18 years old. She doesn't hide her face anymore. She performs regularly at coffee shops and small venues around Nashville. She speaks at schools about fire safety and burn survival. She volunteers with the burn survivor organization Taylor connected her to, helping other survivors, especially kids, learn that their scars don't define them. She still sings anti-hero, but always with the changed lyrics. I'm the survivor, it's me, because that's what she is. Not a monster, not a tragedy, not a problem, a survivor. The video of Sophie's performance that night went viral, over 60 million views. But Sophie doesn't care about views. She cares that thousands of people with facial differences, with scars, with bodies that don't fit the standard, they all saw someone like them standing on a stage, being seen, being celebrated. I thought my scars made me ugly, Sophie says now when she tells her story. But Taylor taught me that scars just tell stories. Mine tell the story of running into fire to save my brother, of surviving when I probably shouldn't have, of 3 years of healing, of learning that being seen is scary but necessary. My scars don't make me ugly. They make me me. That's the lesson Taylor gave Sophie that day on a Nashville sidewalk. Not that scars don't matter. They do. Not that people won't stare. They will. But that being seen is better than hiding. That survival is something to be proud of, not ashamed of. That the only monster Sophie was fighting was the one in her head, telling her she wasn't worthy of taking up space. Sophie takes up space now, loudly, proudly, with her face uncovered and her story told without shame. If this story made you think about the scars you hide, literal or metaphorical, remember, scars are proof you survived something that tried to destroy you. They're not ugly. They're evidence of strength. And you deserve to be seen. Sophie's singing on stages now, face uncovered, telling her story. Because Taylor taught her that hiding wasn't protection, it was prison. And Sophie's done being invisible.